Yeah, but
Well, now you've told them to sign.
Yep.
You're
The
signing.
last one.
Yeah, makes sense.
Except. If they're that far away.
No, it's a practice in getting messier and messier.
It's okay, we're not gonna grade anybody on them.
Spencer's back.
Okay.
I said, yeah. There we go.
What time is
Okay,
it?
we're ready.
Okay, you want to go now?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Terry has dinner reservations.
Oh, we gotta go.
I'm kidding, she doesn't really.
Oh, well, either way.
All right, thumb up, we're going. Okay, good evening, welcome to our regular Tuesday, September 2022 Finance Committee meeting. Call to order. We don't need to introduce ourselves, we all know who we are.
Right.
Let's see, discussion, plugging in of electric vehicles for staff members.
So last year we had one, maybe two high school teachers that plugged in their electric vehicle. Gabe, they worked through Gabe.
Yep.
They set it up through Gabe. And they worked through Andrea to figure out what the cost would be. And they reimbursed the district for the cost of being on there. We received a concern from a community member about that, didn't feel like it was appropriate. I think the person was concerned that the district was not being reimbursed. But we were indeed being reimbursed. And so we wanted to just kind of bring it to your attention that concern was raised. I believe you had to use some extension cords and maybe that was a little bit about the concern.
Yep.
But I think that we should also kind of turn it into a conversation about whether we should begin exploring installing some units in our facilities or at our facilities for community members, for staff to use. At our last board meeting, I mentioned that there is a new law that went into effect that said by 2045, it would be zero emissions. And so we need to be thinking about steps that we can take as a school district to help us achieve that. And one thing that we certainly can do that would benefit our staff and benefit community members is to begin thinking about having some of those EV units here in our property. So I know Gabe has been
Yep.
exploring that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the problem I think that's arisen right now is there's very few outside outlets. So that's why we've had to use a cord to come from an outlet that's not right at the edge of the parking lot. The energy usage was monitored with a device that's in line. So it was monitoring exactly how much electricity was being used. And we found out it's only plugged into a regular 110 outlet. So it's very little power usage to charge these vehicles because they slowly just trickle charge the batteries. So it's not like a fast charge. So that's kind of where the discussion started out. So I've started a discussion with Siemens. Obviously, we use them for a lot of things in the district. Siemens does a lot of different things with their company, and one of them, they also do electric vehicle charging units, stations that they've started installing across the country. And so there's there's a couple different kinds, like what we have now, it's just a slow charges really slow. What a lot of places that you see, if you plug in, if you go up to the mall or someplace like that, it's a fast charge. It needs higher voltage, and we do have that capability, the 3-phase at the school. So it would be something that we could definitely tap into. The other sort of hurdle is, how do they pay for it? How do we charge, somebody that just comes in and plugs in their vehicle? So that's another kind of step to it. It's almost like they explained it like a third-party card sort of thing, or it's like Apple Pay. So it's on an account, and then we would get, it would pay for the power, and we would also get proceeds from it. So this could be something where we pick whatever we want to charge per kilowatt or watt that's used. It potentially could be income, depending on what scope of the project you use. Somebody mentioned, well, maybe up in the upper teacher parking lot at like the high school, if we're right off the interstate. If they're not plugged in during the day with staff that's there, weekends, nights, other people could use it to charge their vehicles. And it goes right into an account, and it's money that would be coming back to the school district. So it's an option. There again, there's a lot of different ways we can go. There is some federal and state money that's out there that we could try to tap into for sure. There again, it would take some work, probably some grant writing, and Siemens is willing to also kind of explain that portion of it and see if they can help us with that also. Yep.
What's the cost of the facilities of the?
So we have a meeting. I've set a date for a meeting with one of the companies through Siemens, October 13th. So I think then we would get a little bit better of an idea how much this would cost the district. Potentially, if there's grant money out there through the federal government and state, there potentially could be no cost to the district.
I don't want to spend any money on the system, frankly.
Yeah.
Unless it's going to pay for itself, we shouldn't be. I don't have anybody put gas in my car. And as long as they're paying it, I don't care, but I don't want to spend $20,000 to put a unit in. And I suspect it's probably that or more to put it, time you get the electrical run to it. And if you're talking 3-phase, you're talking about some serious money. I'm just opposed to doing anything that's going to cost us money when we're looking at our budget, and even if, $20,000 is, and I'm just pulling a number out of my hat, but I've got a concern about that. And I think it's a legitimate one that I think will get a lot of pushback from the community, because not everybody has an electric vehicle. Maybe we will in 30, 25 years from now. There'll be thousands of. My daughter has one in California. She loves it, but she plugs it in at home. I don't think she gets 35, 40 miles out of a single charge, and she just comes home and plugs it right back in. So I think most of our teachers who are going to use it could be able to charge at home and come to school, unless they're over 20 miles away. I can understand if they're farther than that, then maybe we need to help them out a little bit there. But if it's just because you don't want to bother plugging it in at home, not my problem.
Yeah, and I believe it is a scenario with the
Yes.
2 staff members that are at the high school, the distance they travel.
That's okay. We should help them. I'm all for that.
Right. And right now we're basically, we're a small scale. And, it definitely, if there are a number of them, we would have to put some other sort of device that's there to be able to charge.
How are we handling the trip hazard for the cords?
Yeah, really the cords, they're just through an enclosed area. And so there's no trip hazard. They're right along the edge of the building. That's right there.
So nobody's gonna walk down and take a fall with one of those things.
I also worry about our ability to write a grant. The 3 of us who would write the grant are be busy.
Well, and that's why we definitely to move forward with anything like this, we're not gonna be able to do it in-house. It's to the point where we need to have somebody outside this district look at it.
Ought to do it, shouldn't they? I mean,
Well-
really, that's what their business is.
Yeah, the federal government, they're looking for a lot of places to put these charging stations. And I believe that's where the money is coming from. They would pay to put a charging station in because it's a certain distance from the interstate.
But
And
wouldn't
as
it-
long as anybody can use it,
but wouldn't it make, I mean, they have the place right here. Wouldn't it make sense for them to put more, I mean, right off the highway, right at the
Service center.
surface?
yeah, well, it's like
mean-
you look at gas stations, there's one on this side of the road, one on that side of the road. So it would make more sense to put more pumps at one gas station, but that's
So-
not the way they usually look at it.
So we thought it was just appropriate, just to explore.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
No idea whether it's something that we would move forward, but at least explore what our options are and then make a decision whether it's appropriate or not.
Yeah, there, like you say, Siemens or some other company may be willing to install them
That's,
as a profit center for themselves, and
Yeah.
we just get the benefit. I don't
and
care if we
that,
get any money out of it, as long as they're putting them and installing them, and it costs the district nothing. Why not?
and that is the goal, Jim, right there.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
It could also be an attractive feature for teachers moving forward.
It really could,
Yeah.
as far as hiring people
Oh,
that
yeah, no. I
live a
think
little
it's
bit of a
good.
distance away if they knew that they could travel and.
So we'll continue to do what we have done for the existing teachers who want to plug in, correct?
Are you, do you have any objections to that?
Oh, no, I'm very interested to see what you come up with.
Yeah,
But
okay.
given what we did last year, that's okay to proceed, allow them to plug in and they will continue to reimburse us? No issue? Okay.
I just need to know who reaches out to Gabe as
Okay.
far as setting up
Yep.
a plug-in, so,
Right now, there's just one vehicle,
okay, thank you.
and I'll keep you, and it's the same.
Thank you.
We addressed the concerned citizen that contacted us, that this is being paid for by the
Yes.
teachers. Okay, good.
Yes. That information was shared by Andrea. It then came to me as well, and I assured the person that
Good.
they are indeed compensating and reimbursing the district for the cost.
And the teacher reached out to us before we reached out to him. He
Mhm.
told me what he was doing, so it wasn't like a, aha. He was
Right,
very.
we
forthcoming.
we
Yeah,
had
yeah. No,
already,
I
we had a
just-
plan in
anyone
place
listening?
already.
I would think every a few years and the whole situation keeps changing. It's fluid as we become more and more interested in
Right.
going this way.
We're going to be spending several $1,000,000 to upgrade our busing system if we either leasing or, I don't know how much more expensive they are, but I'm guessing $100,000 a unit. And even though we lease our buses, maybe 150, 200, I don't know, but 300,000 in addition to the cost? Oh, great, wonderful. I'm happy.
We have
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're gonna have to spend a lot of money to get it so we can, whatever number of buses we have, we're certainly 20 years down the road, aren't gonna need fewer buses.
Right.
We will need more. And has anybody done the research on these things, how they do in the middle of winter at 5 below zero?
So,
Batteries I'm talking about?
there is a mileage limit for sure. And I mean, as everybody knows, in Maine, when it's cold out, the battery, you need that cranking power to crank your engine over. So it's similar with the electric, with the batteries. I have been told that the heating and any cooling portion that's part of the bus is not off the battery.
Oh, really?
That is actually a separate little diesel motor. So we would still have some sort of
Emissions.
emissions from the bus because we're in a northern climate.
So the diesel's not gonna run the bus, but the diesel will run the heating
Right.
and cooling.
So that's what I have been told. There's about 120 mile
Do wood stoves,
distance.
little
I think,
tiny
but
wood
Do we
stoves.
want to wait for all that conversation when we get down to the
Yeah,
electric
yeah.
bus?
Yikes. Can't even.
Yeah, so the next item is I just wanted to bring to your attention, last spring, I guess it was right in June, when there was the last large active shooting situation in Texas. LDs, is that what it was? The school
Uvalde.
district? Uvalde School District. I had a parent reach out and request that the school district install metal detectors at the school. So I assured the parent that I would speak to the board about it. And I would speak, of course, to administrators about it. So administrators and I had a pretty lengthy conversation back in June regarding it. And just some of the challenges that brings. You know, we have so many doors in some of our buildings. And while the doors were always locked and repeatedly we tell everyone that they're not allowed to give someone access to our buildings through any of those side doors, that's always a risk. There is the manning of the metal detectors in the morning and trying to get all of the students through. And then there are just so many factors. I mean, after school, if no one is still manning it when we have other events, there's still the opportunity to bring devices in, save them or hide them until another day. Those were some of the things that we discussed as an administrative team, and just feeling like it's really not practical to have the metal detectors, so we completely understand the concern and the reason why the parent asked that be discussed. So I'm kind of sharing that here with all of you. So.
Do any other like high schools or systems have this?
I don't know, Diane. I cannot say 100% that there's no school district in Maine, that there's none that don't have metal detectors. I personally have experience with metal detectors. In my previous job, we went through a series of bomb threats. This would have been back in the mid-2000s. It happened to a lot of school districts at that time. And we had 3 metal detectors that we used for a period of time. And it was incredibly difficult and very slow to get everyone through and into the building. And we were still presented with the same problem. Occasionally, a student who didn't want to go through, meet up with his buddy, they would let that person in through a different door, even though they weren't supposed to. And once school ended, our entire building was still open to the public for adult ed. We have a very robust adult ed program. And so while it helped make people feel safer, the reality was that maybe we caught a few potentially items that students brought into school that they shouldn't have, but for the most part, there was no guarantee that weapons or other devices were not still getting into the school.
Well, I wouldn't want to have something that was just a feel-good thing that didn't really accomplish what it was supposed to do.
Right. So.
I recently got an email from a company that on my MSAD11 account was talking about metal detectors. It was a sales pitch, obviously, but I'm surprised that they would know it was just the other day that it would be on our agenda. Somebody's looking.
You must have read your agenda out loud with
Yes.
Alexa or your
Yeah.
phone or something. On
She's
it.
looking all the time.
She's got her eye on you.
Oh, anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, they did say it was autonomous. That was, I swear I saw that in there. So the inference being that it did not have to be manned,
Yeah,
but I would question that seriously.
right.
As bells and whistles go off and sirens sound, how do you know whether it's
Correct.
somebody brought a pocket knife or whether they brought a Uzi?
Correct.
So, I don't
And
know.
there's no guarantee that a metal detector is gonna, we can't have a metal detector at every door. We would never be able to afford that.
Mhm.
And in the case of a Uvalde situation, a metal detector wouldn't have solved anything. So I think I am guilty of it also. You think if we just had that, we'd be fine. But it's much more complicated. Life is just much more complicated than one one answer of one metal detector at one door.
Keeping the door secure is huge.
It's huge.
Just that.
And all of our doors are locked at all times.
Yep.
Most of the active shooters that have been in this, in the country, there haven't been, I mean, one is too many, but there haven't been a huge number. There hasn't been hundreds of them in the last year or two, but there have been some. But in all of those cases, it's been kind of indicated that somebody heard about it ahead of time, whether it was a student or an adult. Maybe we could have a training within the school system to talk about these things that, you know, if you hear something, you may be saving your best friend's life.
We have more than once received communications from parents or students, sometimes after hours. I have received a phone call at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, saying this was just reported. And at that very moment, the police are over at the person's house. It's being investigated.
Yes.
So we have been incredibly fortunate to have students and parents alike reach out to us if they hear anything. And that is absolutely the message. If you get wind of anything happening, don't hesitate to contact someone, reach out to the administration, reach out to a teacher, anyone. We take all of those rumors seriously, we investigate them. So that is the message we try to send to them. And it can be reiterated even more.
Yeah, I think just, you know, the old saying, see something, say something, but
Right.
the life you may save may be your child's.
Correct.
And I think that cannot be emphasized strongly enough. And there's very little that we can do to absolutely make a school 100% safe. I don't know of anything other than, I don't know how you do it. But just anything that we can do to impress on people that their responsibility is to help us to keep their students safe.
And I mean, we have our plans in place, we practice, we talk about it, we do tabletops, we make sure that individuals know what to do in case of a situation. We have the active shooter drills, but a lot of it comes down to relationships and climate, you know, and having students feel like they are valued, they are a part of the school, and that there is someone there at the school that they can trust, who will advocate for them. And that is a major factor in helping deter violence in the school. So.
Talking to my granddaughter, I think she said thought I heard her talk to me about that they did Alice training over at the middle school.
Yes.
You know, and I can tell you for a fact, there are districts in the general area that don't even know what Alice is, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's something new coming out called Alert, which is supposed to be very similar to Alice. Everyone has a different opinion on
Yeah, I know.
what should be done, what shouldn't be done. The State Superintendent's Association is kind of talking about that, saying, you know, we all need to make sure that we have a robust, comprehensive emergency plan in place. But what's that plan? What should it look like that's consistent throughout the state or throughout the region? And that's really hard to define, because what different agencies believe is appropriate is not necessarily what another agency feels is appropriate and the best approach. And so in our community, you know, we do have different agencies, right? We have our local PD, we have our sheriff's department, and we have our state police. So what administratively we've talked about, and we will pull together hopefully this fall, is to again have a tabletop where we have representation from all of those agencies with us, so that we can talk about that type of thing. What will happen if this occurs, who will be in charge? What will the process be? And we've done that in the past. And it's quite informative because even in our area, you will have disagreements on how that should be managed. So,
I did have occasion to talk to Chief Tillman. And I just said, just a simple yes or no. Does our police department have, I know we have our plans for the district, but a plan in an active shooter case? And he said, yes, the answer is yes. And he said, after Uvalde, they had a refresher for all their staff. And I think we saw so many law enforcement people in that building, and children were afraid for such a long time, and with a terrible end for so many. I think that really shook up people. And but he said before school started this year, they were going to speak to staff. I don't know if they did.
the police department was going to speak to the staff?
That's what I thought he said that to me. He didn't.
No.
About their perspective of it, not,
No, he hasn't mentioned that to me. So we haven't done that. But it is our intention of getting all together and deciding or discussing various scenarios and kind of walking through each of those. We've already done some of this ourselves as an administrative team. We did some scenarios this summer. Now, just for ourselves internally, now the next step is that we do need to bring.
You have an timeline and timeframe involved, an idea of?
I don't, it's just been busy for the start of school, but I'd like to do something with this fall.
Okay, good.
So
Sooner than
trying
later.
to pull them all together is sometimes
Oh, yeah.
a challenge, but so.
Proposed procedural change for warrant signing.
So we had an audit this summer, and it always, a financial audit as we're required to, and it always is helpful. This year we have another set of eyes. We've moved away from Drummond Woodsum, as you remember from our conversations back in June. So we're using
Runyon,
Hank.
not,
Runyon Kirstein, sorry, sorry,
it's okay. Hey, wait a minute, Drummond and Woodsum?
sorry.
It's okay.
So Hank is acting as in a consultant capacity, and we have Peter Hall on board as an auditor. And they were, the subject of the warrants came up. And Peter and Hank agreed and had a conversation with me that the process that we're using is rather antiquated and is unnecessary. It is not necessary for the finance committee to sign warrants. That measure is in place for smaller districts without internal controls. In a district of our size, we have plenty of internal controls. So we've been talking upstairs about perhaps no longer requiring the board to sign the warrants. However, extending the offer for board members, should they want to come up and look at warrants and look at things, that they are more than welcome to do so. But for us to bring them down, and they've been sitting in a box, it creates a lot of filing for somebody, and it doesn't serve any internal audit or process or procedure. It's just something we've been doing for a long time, and most districts of our size and larger have moved away from it. So we thought that we would bring it to you for you to weigh in, since finance typically signs the warrants.
I've never seen anybody pause and read the warrants. So I would say that our signatures are really meaningless. Probably what could be useful would be if you were to tell us what in some brief way, the internal controls, so that the public knows we have them, so that they're not thinking, oh, somebody's running away with the checkbook.
So
if we could
we
get
have
that.
probably 20 internal controls as part of our audit procedure that I review every year, and that we make sure that there's one person brings the cash in, one person, the person who's approving the purchase orders isn't the person issuing the checks. Pat reviews the warrants before checks go out. I check the warrants. So there's a lot of internal controls within our building. And we have an internal control process for every single process that we do. We have one for cash, we have one for accounts payable, we have one for accounts receivable. So if somebody's really curious about our internal processes, I would be happy to share with our processes that we share through the audit that we have on file. So it's not just we do this, ding, ding, ding. It's a whole process for every process that we do to make sure that there's enough of us in place so that if something happened, there would be red flags going up and that no one person, I never touch cash. We don't ever get cash. Let me say that. We rarely get cash.
Yep.
All of the big checks either come in via ACH through the state or checks through the city. So there isn't a lot of cash, but I don't touch cash. I post cash. Someone else gets cash. Someone writes down the checks that we do. So there are processes in place.
And that's one of those things that
Mhm.
the public just doesn't have any awareness of. So when someone gets wrangled or uptight about something, they just don't know that there are, and I know there's many, many things that you do to make sure we're safe.
And every year, like I said, as part of our audit, I review those internal control processes and they are reviewed and they look for weaknesses to see if there's weaknesses in any of our processes. There aren't.
And then they make a report to the board.
Well,
to
you're right.
reiterate that.
If they had found something, you would have heard about it by now, but thankfully there's enough of us upstairs to be able to have a good internal control process in place.
Kim,
Do we need a motion to do this? I'd like to make a motion that we do this, but I'd like to retract from about 40 minutes ago.
Thinking about that. You were sad.
I will.
you notice I didn't
Take
run.
responsibility for that, because Andrea's like, well, do we do these? I asked her, should we take these down? She's like, I don't know. I said, because if the board supports this, it's from now moving forward. So I felt that technically we should ask you to sign.
So we still have to
Go
sign
on,
them
Ben.
tonight?
It was mine. I will take responsibility.
Okay, you have my
Purple
motion.
tunnel.
Now,
right?
we will need to go to the full board too, won't we? Or do we need to just do it in finance?
Just to finance.
Super.
You do not have policy on it. It's just a procedure. So I think just here in finance is fine.
And I feel very
So we have
fortunate. Yes, this is my comment.
I know,
portion.
but no, I don't have a
We have a
second.
motion, a second?
Jack.
All right, questions or comments? Comment. I feel so fortunate that I was on another meeting today with MSMA, just so fortunate that we have an Andrea in our business office upstairs that guards our money like it's their own or better. And I'm just so grateful for that because there's a lot of messes out there. And I'm delighted that ours is not one of them. So motion second, all those in favor of never signing those warrants ever again.
Thank you. The person who does accounts payable will be very happy that she doesn't have to wait to file. So she appreciates it as well.
Is that our new employee?
That is our new employee
There
that
we
we stole
go.
from the town of Pittston.
Nice.
Lucky you.
But those right there, do the rest of the board members have to sign though?
Yeah, I want them all to sign.
I pulled the sheets out. I'll make everybody sign.
I just want to be clear, I didn't know that was going to happen, but I did see procedural change and I thought, I'm not going to run over there. I bet we're going to do something different.
No, I think you have to do retro, so you would need to sign.
So you had an idea and you didn't sign?
I sat right
So
here
we just.
And you,
and I watched you
threw
sign.
us under the bus.
We're gonna make her sign, Jim.
I just read the agenda and I thought, oh, this is going to get different.
yeah.
I didn't think you would do that to us.
Oh, I'll sign
Okay,
before I
let's
go.
talk about Hopefield.
Let's talk about it. Well, our athletic director had an idea that we could give a lifetime free pass to all of our major donors to attend our games, and that we might give them each 10 passes, which would be a lot of passes. And so we're bringing it to you. I don't necessarily think we need to do that. I think they did what they did out of the goodness of their hearts. And they're getting a lot of free advertising off the field.
It's not free. It's $25,000 worth of advertising.
Yes, already paid
Well,
for.
This actually would be for the 4 major donors
I-
that were over $100,000. And when we talked about it, we actually said, yeah, 10 passes may be a bit much.
Yep.
You know, does 4 or 6 seem more reasonable? And what does a lifetime mean? Lifetime of the field? And maybe a better approach or another idea would be for a set period of time, like 4 years or 5 years, and not permanent.
Not forever.
So that was also part of
Yes,
the
yeah.
conversation, and I think that's where some of us felt more comfortable with that type of approach versus 10 passes forever.
What is
But-
ever?
It was very clear, and Becky made it very clear that that is a decision that needs to be made here and not with the Hope Field Committee.
So for
It'd be for
those major
football.
donors for 4 to 6 times, whatever, what would that amount to?
It would depend if they used them or not, right?
Mm.
I mean, how much is the entrance fee to the football game? $5? $4, I
$4?
think. I think it's $4 for an adult.
I don't even know.
I think we paid $4.
$50? No, I really don't know.
Yeah, I think we paid $4 when we went a couple weeks ago. So, all right, so 4 times, if I'm right, and it's $4 and 4 times 4 potential, if you did 4, that would be $16 per game. And it would depend how many games. And so 16 times 4, if there were representatives from all 4 organizations.
I agree with Becky. I think people who have the money to help in this way are doing it to help our school, our teams, and they're-
The other
They
thought
don't
that I
need it.
had was that the ticket money helps boosters, right?
No.
It doesn't help
Helps
boosters.
us.
It
Oh,
comes
it
to our
helps us.
revenue, right?
Okay.
I asked for it.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes here, it
I was thinking
offsets what you
boosters.
ask taxpayers for.
Yeah, and if I can chime in, I think it should be probably noted that it would be for turf field events, not like going to a basketball game or those sort of things either. I don't know if that was really even part of the conversation.
know
He did
I
talk
don't
about indoor as well.
No,
talk
it would
about
only
indoor
be for
sports?
turf field.
Right, I just think
And
that would
I
have
think
to
it
be
would be
definitely
just football.
okay.
Football's the
know.
only
Right, just denoted. for
game
that.
right now that we have ticket sales for, other than basketball.
So we don't ticket for lacrosse and or soccer.
Yeah, I don't think there is. There's
Just
somebody
football.
there, but they just let people in.
I don't have a strong feeling on this, you
It
know.
seems like a potential for a good deal of procedural confusion for the person who's taking money at the gate. And like the actual amount of money that would be exchanged versus not exchanged is pretty small in the scheme of
I
things.
think there would have to be like a laminated pass, and they would have to have the laminated pass in their hand to show the ticket taker, so that they would know that they didn't have to pay.
Would it say in perpetuity? Forever?
No, that's what I said. What does a lifetime mean?
Right.
Right. It was mentioned is that the lifetime
Life of the
pass,
field.
that it lasts. Well,
Right.
if somebody takes good care of it, it's gonna last a lot longer than,
Yeah, I think
Then
that
if
there
I had
has
it
to
in my
be an
pocket.
expiration date.
right. I agree. I think there would have to be some sort of date.
Yeah.
That's my thought on it.
If we're going to do this, I mentioned the $25,000. I think we should also recognize those folks in addition, because those honestly will be the people we will be going to when this field needs to be replaced. We're not going to be doing a major underground operation. There might be some minor grading, but the person installing the field will be doing that touch-up work. Oh, but I mean, we'll be, I won't be doing it, but you know, the folks that I went to, it was, they committed to helping get this thing off the ground. I mean, and really and truly, I don't like to put your donation is worth more than my donation type of an affair. If we're going to do it, I would do it for all major donors. If you want to make a gradation for 4 tickets for the $25,000 donations and 8 for the others, I don't care, but I just think they ought to at least be recognized, and maybe looking at the life of the field at being 10 years. We hope it's much longer, but it's probably at least going to go for 10 years. And if we did 10 years on a, it's, you know, how many games, 14 games a year? Well, no home games, 6 or 8 games a year for 10 years. So 60 games times 4 times $4, 16 times. It's not a lot of money. And it won't make a difference, but it's just a way of saying thank you. That's my thinking.
I don't know. There's the,
I think it's $4.
so I don't know. And the other thing is that while they're in the center of the field, there's also a recognition wall that's being created, and they're all on that as well.
Did a donor inquire about tickets, or we just?
No, it was brought to us by the athletic director.
I didn't.
He didn't say that a donor asked about it, and I can't imagine that a donor would, but.
I would be surprised.
And one of, Mike McGee's one of our coaches, so I don't know.
So they're all on that recognition wall.
Yeah, oh, they will be, yeah. Not trying to be a Grinch, but I just know we need money too. And I'm so grateful for everything that they've given. I am extremely grateful for that. But
I feel like if you're willing to become a major donor, you're not going to have a big problem pitching in
I agree.
to go see a home football game.
right,
Good point, Jack.
so what's the feeling of the committee?
I'm not avidly, don't have her do this. I'm not too enthused.
Me either. Does this one have to come to the full board? No, because it's not a policy.
I don't care either way. I think if we're going to do any of it, we should do it for all of them.
I think if we do it, we should do it well.
Yeah, and you're looking at about 106, I guesstimated 6 to 7 games a year. Anyways, in 10 years, it's about $1,680 over a 10-year period, assuming we have a price increase on an average up to $6 a ticket over a 10-year period. I'm just guessing.
It is $4 for adults.
Yeah.
$2 for students, $9 for family, and free for senior citizens and MSAD11 employees.
And it will go up.
And it will go up.
Yeah. So that's anyways, I'm not married to it either way, but if we're gonna do it for and I appreciate what they've done. The major donors put a lot of money into this field and effort, but if we recognize anybody, we should recognize all of the majors.
So Hokefield Committee meets tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Am I sensing that you would support a recommendation or whatever the committee would support, providing it takes into consideration all donors? Is that what I'm hearing? As long as it's reasonable and fair?
I'd like to hear what they have to recommend.
Okay, all
I
right.
don't necessarily
Okay.
think that. I don't think Jack thinks that necessarily. I think Jim came up with a great idea. I think we're pretty,
So I'm thinking about time frame. It's our
Yep.
football season right now. And so if the committee meets tomorrow and it kind of hashes out an official recommendation, and we wait until your next meeting, which is in October, football season's going to be over for the most part.
Although they're winning, but yes.
And let's hope that continues.
I hate to be the wet rag on that one. I honestly, I don't have a strong thing that says, yeah, we ought to do this. It feels like something we could perhaps revisit next season. I mean, here we are, we're in football season right now, so it really does.
Kind of like, if you want to give them a couple of tickets for this year, give everybody tickets and, we'll talk about the whole process next year. I mean, what have we got? 4 games left for the season? Home games?
I don't know. And
I
it
don't
would
know. I think
depend if they go into
playoffs, but
regionals.
I feel as though we should, I'm not inclined to it. I'm happy to talk about it again.
No, I don't care. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's just, it feels a little bit, it feels like a little bit of an awkward gesture,
Okay.
I guess, overall.
Awkward gesture at a really short period of time, because here we are, we're at the,
I would just
We're at the
assume wait
50-yard
till
line
next
right
year.
now.
That's fine. I mean.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we're gonna punt this one.
all right.
Sounds good.
So
Yeah,
we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
you didn't even catch my
I got it. Punt.
punt.
Football.
Punt it.
Got it.
Could I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
Why did this come to us at such a short notice? I mean, if Nate had been thinking about this a while back, why didn't he bring it to us last year? The field's been in the ground for a long time.
I don't know.
It came to us at our last
The last
meeting.
meeting, and it
Yep.
was it was just towards the end of the meeting. So I don't know if it was brought up in some conversation. I don't know.
I don't know if he's had conversation with someone about it. I don't know. He just brought it up at the end of
I
the
don't
meeting.
like last minute where you're up against a time frame and say, it's do or die time.
And I think his hope kind of was that we would just make a decision there, perhaps, not in a sneaky way, but just that we would say yes to that. And I said, it's a money thing. The finance committee the board has to weigh in on
Yeah.
this because it's about money and we can't
Always
just be,
have.
yeah,
But I don't think he realized that.
no.
He didn't realize that there was this process that we needed to go through. And sometimes things get so busy that we just don't think or we forget to share an idea or a thought. And so this may absolutely have been what happened in that
Yeah.
regard. So,
We just said we'd bring it.
Good intentions.
yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh,
good
absolutely. Yeah, I'm not trying to-
intentions, absolutely.
No.
Intimate that he's doing something
Yeah.
bad, no. Excuse me.
So electric school buses, I put this on really because, again, as I mentioned to the board, when I gave you a breakdown of some of the legislative changes, that there is a bill that was passed that said by, I think it was 2035,
Mhm.
they want 75% of school buses to be electric.
Mhm.
And so our fleet is actually leased from Sear Bus. And so I was told by Andrea that our lease is up this year with Sear, and by law, we have to negotiate every 5 years. So I just wanted to kind of get your take on whether we should begin engaging Sear in a conversation to say, what are your plans moving forward with electric buses? Are you looking to order electric buses? How much do they cost? What does that look like? The law said that if school districts purchase or lease electric buses, rather than the 5-year max that we've always been allowed, it would be expanded to 15 years. So that would allow us to spread the cost out longer. I don't know what repairs look like for electric buses. I have no idea. If they look very different. Do we consider, is it more financially feasible for the district to actually lease, to purchase its own buses if they're electric versus purchasing them or leasing them through SEER? I have no idea. I have no information, no knowledge about any of this, but thought rather than waiting until spring when we go out to bid, that I would like your permission to just move forward now and begin engaging in some conversations. And maybe we ask Sears to come here to a finance and talk to you about it.
If not for this, the next lease, at least, if not for the next 5 years, at least moving
Right.
forward.
In the future.
I mean, if we're talking about a huge cultural shift between, a huge shift between us leasing and us, having to build a garage and hire mechanics and to keep tires in stock and to keep supplies in stock. I mean, that's a huge shift from the way that we currently
Right.
conduct our transportation fleet now, and that would require a lot more than the next 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of back to some of the questions that we've had before, I have no idea how many miles a bus will travel. So as we think about our routes and we think about East Pittston and places in West Gardner, how many miles are we putting on those buses per route?
Right.
And will an electric bus even last through an entire route without needing to be recharged? I'm sorry, Jack, did you have your hand raised at one point?
Yeah. So in our lease now, does the bus company do all the maintenance?
Yes, everything. They
Okay,
keep the supplies, they provide the mechanics. They do everything.
okay,
It's from,
okay.
and our
So-
buses are probably newer because of this than most of the other fleets run by school districts that own their own buses.
Okay, so if we had a 15-year lease on electric buses, like the fact that the electric bus battery is only gonna last 7 would be their problem
It would
versus
be a
an our
big
problem.
problem. Right.
Well, and
That
we
sounds
have
like a good
we
idea.
have a 5-year contract, but that doesn't mean that all of the buses last 5 years. Some of the buses are allowed to, so there's a language in our contract that says that no bus in the fleet may be older than this many years, or, there's constant turnover in our bus fleet throughout the course of the lease. It's not like we do a huge refresh
Yeah.
and we get all new buses.
Right, yeah, we get
So-
five or maybe 10 new ones a year.
Okay.
So depending on, the ones that were aged out, and sometimes depends, right now, there's been a huge supply chain issue with just getting buses. So that's been the hard part right now.
Mhm.
And I really feel that's the way with every district looking at this across the country. I'm pretty sure there's already a backlog of these electric buses that are being produced now even.
And the other thing what I will say about us leasing our buses. So in the school funding model, there's 2 ways that transportation is funded. It's either your expenditures or it's basically a cost based on your routes, how much roadway you have. And it's the less of the two. And for us, the less of the two is always our expenditures. So our transportation, even though we talk about how much it costs to lease our buses, we're doing it on the cheap because I don't mean on the cheap, but we're doing it less than other districts. And that's how we're being reimbursed for transportation, as opposed to the calculation of the routes. So anyway.
So this little Google that I'm Googling says that an electric bus can get between 100 and 155 miles for their on a charge.
Yeah, that's why they gave me 120-mile average.
That would be that.
And we do, some of the routes, they would have to make sure they are plugged in between morning bus runs and
Right.
afternoon bus runs. If they were not, they would not make it.
right?
Does that account for stops, Becky? Does it say, or
It doesn't say anything about stops. It says that it decreases your maintenance 60%, and it decreases your energy 80%, energy use by 80%, and that this is a company, Lion it's called, that is very experienced with cold weather. Warm and cold.
Well, even if we, even if the board decides to lease them over 15 years, there's still going to be cost to us to put in charging stations.
Yeah,
Right.
And how many buses do we have on doing daily runs versus just our backup buses for our other trips? And so do we need 10? Do we need 15? And do we need a phase 2 or a phase 3? Kind of back to Jim's question about the cost. And where would we actually place them down there, right? So that all the buses could access those charging stations. Those are certainly issues that would need to be addressed, and that would be a lot of money.
And what about drivers who take buses home?
That's,
How are
we
they
have
going
a
to
good number of
plug in?
parkouts.
park
So they
outs?
wouldn't be able to do that. They would all have to come back to the office,
Right.
which if they are a park out, it's less mileage for them to go back home, and their route starts next to where they live. And so there'll be more mileage,
Right.
and those sort of expenses too.
Do we agree that for our next lease that we're probably not looking at
Yeah, I
electric?
don't think we are looking at
But we-
electric, but
to
I think
begin
that we
that
do need to
conversation. But
we
start
started
having
talking
a
about
it.
conversation.
And definitely SEER has started that conversation there amongst SEER. There's been talk about nobody's trained in their department to work on them.
Right.
So there's a major hurdle right there in training or hiring somebody that is trained on these buses. And I mean, the battery banks are massive underneath of them. They kind of sit in between the frames down the center of the bus. So there's, logistics of doing a battery swap out it's thousands and thousands of pounds to swap the batteries.
batteries that heavy, you're gonna be talking about suspension problems in a heartbeat, especially on our roads.
Yeah, there will be some definite kind of,
Frost heaves, right?
I am hoping everybody else works those bugs out before we started on it.
Yeah,
So
I love the idea
oh,
for the
absolutely.
environment. I love it. However,
Absolutely.
I feel like we're trying to maybe the cart's even a little bit before the horse because we don't have the infrastructure in place
We- no.
anywhere across the country to take care of this issue that we have. And then I have a really practical, silly question. What's in the engine compartment?
Motors.
Is it as
Yeah.
big as the motor that's in there?
There's electric motors that may drive each,
But they're
wheel.
little.
No,
no, they're big.
They are
They're
big.
big motors. Yeah, these
Okay.
electric motors that drive these vehicles
Okay.
are pretty good.
Because I saw some electric pickup trucks and what's under the hood in there is teeny.
Yeah.
Compared to what's,
Well, I'm sure there'll be, maybe we
and
could.
crashing concerns me because
I would not be surprised at the
Fall
main
conference.
fall, at the conference for school board members in October. I wouldn't be surprised if they had an electric bus.
I'll
so
bring
you
that
can
up.
Get on and look at it,
Take a ride.
take a ride, or at least step
Mhm.
on it, look at
Yeah.
it and see.
It's a great idea, but you're right, it comes with a whole assortment of challenges.
Yeah, I mean, we're not prepared as a country. We can't,
Correct.
not to get into that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but we need infrastructure to take care of all these things that we're.
off-road
Targeting
mining
towards.
trucks for hauling out
They've
of
been,
open pit mines
Yeah.
are all electric.
Yeah.
They have a huge diesel engine running a generator. The motors in them are almost as tall as I am, and they're in that big around.
Really?
Well, they're enormous.
Electric motors.
Electric motors. I've actually walked into the differential, standing up of a machine
Interesting.
with motors on both sides of me handling both. And they're enormous. I
It's
didn't sell anything
fascinating.
like that, but
Yeah.
I sold the equipment that filled those trucks.
Fascinating.
And the electrical wires are, well, not as big as my wrist, but they're half the big as my wrist.
All good stuff we need to
But
consider and think about.
Okay.
If we're gonna do this, though, we're gonna have to stagger it. And the problem with
Of course.
staggering it is that, how do you stagger the infrastructure?
Right, you either have it or you don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy enough to put another charge station here and tie it on down, but we've got to have the power coming into us. And I'll bet you that's gonna become in 3-phase, maybe 440.
Yeah, and at if it is at the bus office now, we
Right.
don't have 3-phase there. There is 3-phase out on Brunswick Avenue, so it'd have to be brought in. There would need to be some major infrastructure around, I mean, we park all the buses facing into each of the spots with just the 110 plug for the block heaters for the winter. So kind of envisioning that there's gonna be a pole at each location with a charging unit that you would plug this bus in to this
When we go that
3-phase
way,
charger.
can our
Yes,
power
ma'am.
grid, is our power grid built for that?
Well, it would all have to be, I mean, especially for the bus office, all of
Yeah.
that would have to be upgraded.
I think you're
Andrew's not
talking
gonna
about
like the
outside.
cost of.
I'm talking both.
Well,
Yes.
it's either
Yes.
oil, it's either diesel
We
or.
won't be spending, buying 50,000 gallons of diesel a year.
Is that
So-
something
But the power
where,
grid,
You
gotta think about
this is a
it.
state law, right? Or is it a national? Is it federal or state?
It's state, but they're talking about it all across the
Uh-huh.
country.
But state, it's wonderful for the legislature to make the decisions like this, but not only just the cost of it, but do we even have the infrastructure that will supply the power?
I'm not sure.
That's a big question. Now,
To me, that would be the place I'd
Maybe,
start,
you know,
if I
not-
want that.
maybe we could put a solar farm in on some of our property, seriously, and charge our own buses, but something, it's odd.
so
That's where I would start. I would start with the basics. Do we have the power on the ground to do this? I'm sorry, Jack.
could we explore like making a plan where over the next 5 years of a regular contract, we start putting small investments into that infrastructure every year, like upgrading the electrical panels, like starting to make inroads to being set up for that, so that we might be in a different position in 5 years?
I think that's a great year, as long as things don't change between the time we start and then the time it's implemented. It seems like things are changing so quickly. I'd hate to start doing this and then 5 years later, everything, technology or whatever changes, and now it's antiquated.
No, you're right.
That's a fair point.
But the alternative to that, and what Jack is saying, is that we have the reserve account, right? The maintenance
Mhm.
reserve account. So to help achieve that, you could, depending upon the status of the budget, you could sock away X number of dollars each year to put it aside versus actually installing the equipment, just have the money
Mm.
Sure.
designated
That
for
would be a
that.
good idea. Yeah.
Maybe the folks at the state school board association could talk to our legislatures about coming up with a funding program that would help with the infrastructure, if not the batteries, excuse me. With not the infrastructure, at least not with the buses, but for right now, but at least with the infrastructure to get it so that we can do what they've asked us to do, damn it. Okay,
I like your ringtone.
yeah, me too. Okay.
So more to come.
Yes.
And we will engage in an initial conversation with Sear Bus.
And I'll mention it to Steve and Eileen about having a bus at fall conference.
Yeah, that would be great.
And I'm sure it's already on Sears' agenda. They transport for Bangor and some of the other districts, so conversation will not be.
It won't be new for
It
them.
will-
Yeah.
And the solar field question is out there. There's, across the street from where New Mills Market used to be, that's gonna be a huge solar field, but it's gonna carry electricity to Con Edison. So it's not even gonna be here in Maine. So there's only so many fields we can,
Rooftop solar?
So-
Well,
rooftop solar,
I mean,
right?
the high school has a massive roof.
Yeah.
It
I mean, there's
does.
been talk about it. with that comes some major engineering that would need to be looked at. So
Great money
that's
for engineering.
snow loads, those sort of things, so that's.
Yeah, see, I don't know if our roof would have.
And that's why, and that's really why we haven't gone that route.
Yep, I get it.
And
Parking
that's-
lot.
Parking lots.
And
yeah.
well, the bus office, that's a big parking lot. We could do an enclosed roof. I wouldn't have to shovel snow at the buses, solar panels on the top.
But that's a
Covered
reminder,
parking
we're,
lot. Right, that's what I'm saying. covered
we are
parking lot.
part of a
lot
consortium
of-
now
lot of
that is
things.
doing
Yes.
solar, that we are starting to get rebates as these projects are coming online. So we are involved in becoming green. We're earning REC's renewable energy
Right.
credits, so it's not like we're not doing anything.
We're doing our part that we can do
Yes.
right now,
Yes, we are walking in that direction.
which is good,
Yep, we've partnered with some,
at just the right time.
we did.
Next,
Yeah, I just want to keep an eye.
I know,
on the
yeah, I'm
time.
watching it too.
Um,
Revolving renovation fund update.
So Gabe has been working with a couple companies here just to see whether there's the feasibility of us being able to submit a application for a revolving fund. As a reminder, the revolving fund, it's a state-funded program. You can apply for a maximum of $1 million. Right now, they're accepting applications for priority 1 issues, which really center around air quality, asbestos abatement, those types of issues that you're having with a particular building. The application's due the end of October, and if it's approved, the state will pay for a percentage of that, and then it would be up for school districts to pay the other percentage. The percentage will vary per school, so I don't know exactly what our percentage would be. I don't know if, Andrea, if you have a sense of what that would be. It ranges anywhere between 30% and 70% that the state will cover, and then the district pays the rest.
I like the 70%
I do
number.
too. I'm not sure what they use, if it's like free and reduced and that type of demographic.
We would have to,
Then I
people.
will probably be closer to 30% or 40%.
We've done a lot on our air conditioning and air quality in the last 2 years. Do we have a lot to do?
That's why the request was to take a look at our facilities to see if there's anything that would qualify. I think a life skill one that would qualify would be like bringing the high school up to code for handicapped accessibility, things like that, say in the locker rooms. But that's probably more than $1 million. So
would it really be more than $1 million?
Well, so I did have, I actually had a meeting today with Black Diamond. We looked at some of the kind of like items that we had kind of discussed and to see what they felt would fit in. The priority one is like the sticky wicket sort of thing. They have to tick so many boxes, and there has to be for locker room renovations and those sort of things. There's a lot to it. A lot of these projects, it seems like they try to hit on, like one specific item that they would replace. Like floors are easy. It's the floor has asbestos in it. You can prove it has asbestos and you can see that it's falling apart. So in that respect, they usually will say, yep, we'll do that. That's definitely a priority 1. So really looking at some of these things where, like if it is a locker room or bathroom renovations, there's a lot of other pieces that would have to be done that don't qualify for, say, the accessibility piece. It'll pay for that one little portion of it, but to do that one little portion, you have to rip the whole bathroom apart, but they're not going to pay for any of that sort of thing. So it's Black Diamond right now, they have all the information. They're still looking through to see kind of how this would all be put together. They would be able to put it together as a package for us. And be able to help us or do the application to submit it. Also, once the project is started, they would be the overseer of the project. So it wouldn't just be on me to now oversee this $1 million project. And Andrew is going to be happy because they will be doing all the paperwork for the federal requirements, all of those items.
And
that would
they're
go
good
with
at
that. And they're good at that.
Okay. That's
So that would be all written into their proposal, basically. So we kind of stepped back and looked at some of the items and looked at the high school for the floor, for sure. Abating the floor in the cafeteria, hallways, there's asbestos flooring that's been there. So I called up the gentleman that does our testing, Craig Wilson at Icon, and he is trying to work together also with Black Diamond to get as much material as possible. He did a project last year with another school district that he's hoping that we can look at their application and actually just mirror it. And it was theirs was approved. So if we can submit something that's similar, the likeliness of it being approved is much better than us just starting with not quite a focus on how to move forward.
Craig Wilson is an icon.
Yes.
He is
yes.
unbelievable.
He is. So that's good that we
Yeah.
can, so
Very
we
good.
have a couple companies looking at it.
Good.
Craig really, he
He
does.
invaded my basement. I
So you know Craig.
I do know.
Yes. he's
And if that.
Very good at what he
And if
does.
the cafeteria floor is the only thing, that's still gonna benefit us because we have been looking to fund the entire abatement, which
Right.
was what, 80,000,
Oh,
100,000
and
that
that
we
was
had in
a
our
couple years
budget.
ago.
Right.
So if we
expensive.
can get 30%, 40% of that
Right.
paid for and covered by the state, then we certainly would benefit
Yeah.
from that.
So we're also looking at the high school, if you drive out back, you see the unit that's on the backside of Tech Wing. It's called a chiller. It's for the heat pump units that are in the building.
Where the
yeah.
tractors go under?
Yeah, where the tractors go under, it's in a little fenced in area right there. So it's part of the heat pump system that chills the water down in the summertime. And basically, without that, the heating and cooling system in that part of the building does not function properly. It will not function. So potentially may be able to tie that into a replacement because it's in dire need of being replaced. It's 36 years old. And we've done some major repairs and patching to it, but it's at the point where we're not getting parts anymore for it. So potentially that could be part of a system that we could tie into air quality, building like an emergency sort of need. If it goes down, we do not have proper heating and cooling in that part of the building. And that same goes for Helen Thompson also. It's the same sort of unit out there.
The Taming's not that old.
No, it's in the
35
20s. It
So
was built in the 1990s.
mid-90s, so it's the same age, so it's almost 30 years, so it's 95, right? So that one's,
Yeah.
right, so they're getting close to
The
30
nineties
years.
were farther away
Right.
than we think.
I was going off a number Siemens gave. I was going off a number Siemens gave me.
They're
so-
not just yesterday.
No. So, right, yeah, you're right, mid-90s.
Maybe
Yeah, so
that's
it's
what's
getting
wrong
up
in
there
this
in age.
building, that the heating and cooling is never right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that they're gonna look at. The other thing that was brought up that they thought might fit in is the catwalk.
No kidding.
Because that's a structural piece to the building where it leaks all the time. There's obviously leakage and failure because of its age. And that section, Andrea, let me know that the last time we did any sort of renovation fund like this was back in '08.
Well, the last, we've done loans, but.
Right, but
The last time we accessed the revolving
revolving
renovation.
renovations back in
was-
'08.
Yep.
And that was for window replacements at the high school.
Yep.
And that is those storefront sort of windows, but for some reason, the catwalk was never done. Not sure why.
Never even
So-
talked about it.
It was definitely, it made it through the funding back then. So I can't see why it definitely wouldn't make it through now, being 30 or
Right.
maybe about 30 years, no, not 30, about 20 something years. So maybe that's something that could be looked at. So Black Diamond will look at that too. The big piece with this is trying to get everything done for the 31st deadline. They're October 31st. They're pretty confident they can get the asbestos portion of it, because if we can use the application that Craig did last year, that's kind of a easier one. The other ones may not, but if we can at least get one thing in there, would be great. So that's a plus. It was a good conversation today. There was a lot of information that we went back and forth.
And even if that's all that we get, I mean, if the state were to cover, say, 30% of $1 million, where would we come up with our other 700,000 right now, right?
Well, right.
So if we're able to abate the floor, say that's 100,000. And we've been building in 80,000, we technically keep taking it out because of other expenses. But that's a little bit more manageable to try to build into our budget.
Oh, absolutely.
And if now we can get it at 60,000 or 70,000 versus what we've been budgeting, it's a gain.
Yeah.
Something we can
Definitely a
cross
gain.
off the 5-year capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything we can cross off that
Just
list now
keep
is a
adding
gain.
things out.
And
Yeah.
another thing Black Diamond did bring up too, was definitely moving forward. They would like some time just to talk about definitely doing like an analysis of all the buildings, like complete analysis, and getting an engineering sort of view on things to make sure we have items that really should be in the 5-year capital improvement in there.
I completely agree with the
Yeah.
need for that to be done. I believe, Gabe, there is legislation that was recently passed that involves a study at the state level or something
Yeah.
that will require or provide funding or something for school districts to do exactly what you are proposing, because the state needs to get a better handle
On our
on
aging
school
buildings.
construction and the
Mhm.
aging
Yep.
buildings.
Yep.
And our buildings are definitely aging.
Yeah, they're
Um,
getting to the point where they're hitting that 30-year
Yeah,
life expectancy window, and we're really seeing, especially mechanicals.
well, the high
Um,
school was built in the 60s, so we've exceeded the
Yes.
30 years.
I'm saying some of the elementary
Yeah.
schools, that's where we're seeing some that we
Jim.
hadn't seen when I first started here.
Yeah. Sorry.
I said, plug your ears, Jim. We're gonna start to talk about.
No,
That
we're
thing.
not.
Yeah, we are.
We'll be dead before a new elementary school is built. Not that I will stop it, but it will never happen within my lifetime because
Jim, I didn't say that.
I did.
I wasn't even, I was saying we need to repair the buildings.
I agree. But I don't think even if we all decided that everybody overrode me tomorrow and said, we're going to make an application to get a new elementary school built, unless the state is gonna come up with $50 million to build that, number one, you'll never get it through the population. And number two, it'd take 10 more years, 20 more years before we could ever see the student walk through the door. I think maybe 10, maybe if we started right now, 10 years,
Yeah.
somebody walk through the door. But before that, nope.
It takes a while.
It does.
It does take a while. So,
I'm looking for that.
Yeah.
We're looking for
So-
$30,000 to fix the floors in the high school. And we're not replacing the high school. That'd be $100,000, $100 million, I mean, excuse me.
It'd be quite a bit.
Yeah, how much was Mount Ararat? How much did that? Was that
Well,
40
that
million,
was-
60 million?
I don't know.
How many years ago? That was like
That was 2 years ago.
5? Was
Yeah, no.
was it that recent?
Maybe just opened 2
Yeah,
years
just
ago.
opened.
Okay, I think it was.
Yeah.
open
Yeah, I
English.
don't know.
All right, fuel and electricity update.
It's just me. I'm just letting you know that we have yet to bid. Actually, we have gone out to bid. We just don't like what we see.
Oh,
So
No,
our
thank you. No, thank
electricity,
you.
our electricity contract for the district They expire in December. And as you may recall, we are currently paying 6 cents a kilowatt hour. I mean, we asked Competitive Energy Services to do a bid, and I didn't see anything less than twice that. And the lock is for an extended period of time. CES, Competitive Energy Services, would like to get through the fall to see if things turn around. I don't know if this now is the best we're going to get or later. It's all a gamble. The same thing with our diesel. So we started the year with gallons remaining of diesel, and we went out to bid, and the bid price was even more than the 40% additional that I put in the budget. So we took a breath, and we're waiting until the summer driving is over, and we're going to refresh again. I saw an email that came across my desk yesterday that was shared by Maine Power Options. It came from Consolidated Energies, and they're talking about the standard offer for electricity going up as high as 44 cents a kilowatt hour. So currently we're all paying about 11 cents a kilowatt hour for the standard offer. Now, Charlie told me to take a breath, that this is one company predicting. He thinks that there may be scare tactic to try to get people to sign long-term. So we have some time still to get a little further into the fall to see what happens with our prices. But I wanted you to be aware of where we are, and I will keep you abreast as these conversations evolve. Questions? Sorry, I wish I had better news.
No, that's okay. You'll find the good news.
We will eventually.
Yeah. Future agenda items? Elementary school
We'll see.
construction.
We'll see.
It's gonna keep Jim coming back for
Well,
more.
next month, we will absolutely talk about the revolving fund, give you an update, and when is your next meeting? Your next finance meeting is on the 18th.
Mhm.
So we will have had a meeting on the 13th with Siemens, so we may be able to provide you with an update on that
Good.
discussion.
It's too early to begin budget, but that will be around the corner.
Yeah, so I don't know, something will pop up. It always does.
Always does. It's always exciting.
So,
I have a list. Want my list now?
What?
My list of wants?
for next meeting?
No, for budget.
No, we do not.
I don't want to hear
Alright,
it.
so that's all we have.
That's it. Thank you all for coming. Terry, thank you.
7:00, awesome, thank you.
Are board members allowed to
Yes.
advocate for something in the budget?
During the budget process, if there's something that's not already in there, yeah, I mean, if there's something that you feel that we need and we're not budgeting for it.
It's so strict, guidance counselors need to come back.
Okay, that's a conversation that,
Well, and we said we would bring it back. So
I'm part of that.
that's a conversation we
Yeah.
Community school.
keeping in mind, part of it was we couldn't find.
Talk about
Right.
California, community school in California, literally is
Oh,